Michael, how much of this is a test about attitude with everything that's gone on and trying to get back to some sort of normality?
Yeah, it's been a huge part of what we're trying to do. Attitude, mentality, trying to tie it along with the physicality that you obviously need as well. So it's getting players to deal with the facts. So, have we had enough time? Probably not. But all four teams are in the same boat, even in terms of just trying to get games. The amount of games we've had organised and cancelled because the Championship and Premier League are all playing each other, which they wouldn't normally do. And obviously League One took a long time, so we could only obviously play teams that had been tested. So it's all been trying, but there's so many things that you can take your mind off the ball, deal with the facts. The players have been good. They've and I'm sure the other three teams are saying exactly the same. It's been a long, hard season, and finish the job that you started. That's what we'll all be trying to do.
And have you got everyone available at this stage who obviously you'd want to be available? Players have had personal issues as well in some cases of shielding.
Yeah, there was a whole sort of cycle of emotions from a player's point of view. There was at the start, it's why aren't we going to get promoted? We've come fourth. Why isn't it the points per games? And then there's the anxiety almost of coming into train. Like you said, people have got their own lives. The players aren't particularly bothered about themselves. It's more people they're going home to and family members, whether that's young players who live with older parents with health issues. And then obviously the education that the club have given them in terms of it is a really safe environment to come into work. People getting tested, things getting sterilised properly and everything like that. And then they got their head around it. Right, let's crack on. So the last week, 10 days has been particularly good. There's people carrying niggles. We'll have to assess where certain people are. Different people come back at different levels of fitness just because they're 25 different human beings. Some are naturally fit than others. Some have done more than others. But as a general rule, we've been really happy with them.
And how much work how have you divided the work up between fitness work and football work, or actually can you use the football work to build the fitness?
Yeah, well, that's been a challenge for the staff of assessing where they're at quite quickly, and then getting the balance of preparing for Northampton, reminding of how we play and principles that we have, what we do with, without, and when the ball's in transition, and working on the mentality side of it as well. So it's one team might finish the season that's got promoted, and everyone might turn around and go, well, that's why they did it, because they did that. But no one knows what that is yet. No one's ever been in this position. I've just spoke to somebody there from the LMA, and they're like, how you doing? It's all a bit strange. And that's someone who's been a manager for 30 years. So we're doing what we think is best off education that we've had from other people, and we'll give it a crack. That's all we can say.
And in terms of getting the shape and the combinations back, how quickly has that come back in training so that people have, if you like, got back into the groove of what it is that you try and do game in, game out?
Actually really pleasing. We played Cardiff last Tuesday, so we'd only had 4 or 5 training days, of which the first couple were in pods. Not done any work on any sort of patterns or shape or anything like that, and actually played some really good football. So it just goes to show you they don't forget. So we're just a few reminders, and like I said, repeating myself, but it's been more the mentality and the physicality that we've been trying to get into them. It's because it almost has been a microwave pre-season.
Yeah, Keith Curle's described it as a sprint, not a marathon. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. But whether the players are robust enough to sprint, this is the problem. But there's a squad. Everyone, we will need everyone. I can't imagine both teams will look the same for the second leg for many different reasons. And there's no point. When you do speak to other clubs, i.e. in the Championship or the Premier League, they can maybe have a couple of off days because they've still got quarter of a season to play. These are, well, it's not 1 off, it's 2 off games. So if you don't turn up for one of them, that's your season done. So we'll all be trying our best ultimately. And Keith will be. They won't come away too much from what they do. We won't come away from too much what we do. We've both had successful seasons. That's why we're playing each other in the playoffs. So yeah. People play the game differently. They are a really difficult team. The 2 games we've had have been really, really close affairs. And we'll just be trying to do ourselves justice. And not if the last thing I want is to finish the game and go, well, it wasn't fair. That doesn't matter. All 4 teams are in exactly the same situation, so that's the key.
And you've hinted at it there. You know what you'll get with them. They like to get the ball forward quickly and play in your half. They've got to be fit to play that way. How fit have you got to be to play against it as well?
Well, it's part of football. You know, particularly at the level that we play at, League Two, the ball does come in the box more often. It's more attritional. We've dealt with it well. We have got defenders who do like heading the ball. But these are all factors that we'll never know. So we don't know how fit the players are. You know, they've definitely played less minutes than what they would normally go into. So we don't know where they're at in terms of. So this is again same for all 4 teams, walking in the dark a little bit. So we'll cope with what they'll throw at us, and we'll hopefully be able to move the ball and keep the ball off them. So when they do come pressing, that we don't give it to them all the time.
And it's in June as well. Obviously, those 2 games that you played against them in the regular season were sort of in the depths of winter, if you like. Very different conditions. How big a factor could they be?
I think it's all. They're all factors, but it's I can't control any of that. So the only thing I can control is how we try and implement our game. So it's going to be hotter. The pitches will be better. But Keith he will have his team at it. So trying to recreate the intensity of a playoff game, that's going to be a key factor, because no matter how hard you try, it's going to be difficult without a crowd. But again, I'm saying that I don't know because I've never done it. So I think we're all going to be a lot wiser after the event. So I'm just looking forward to it now. We've done a lot of talking and a lot of planning and not planning and not knowing what's going on. Well, we know what's going on now. We've got 2 games of football in the next week, which will determine whether we get an opportunity to play at Wembley or not.
And finally, from me, Michael, in terms of the logistics when you're at the ground, your players are going to have to be split into 2 dressing rooms. Some will be in the away dressing room and some will be somewhere else in a players' lounge or something similar. Does that mean you end up giving 2 team talks, or do you give it earlier when the players are together? How do you work around that?
My voice carries. I reckon I can get it through both dressing rooms. No, we normally have a meeting in the hotel, a pre-match meeting, and to be honest, what I say at the ground it's not irrelevant, but if you're still having to give snippets of information and bits of advice at that point, I think you're in trouble. The players will know their roles, they will know what's expected of them, and if they need motivating to play in the playoffs, there's something wrong with the individual. So it will just be a couple of little reminders. So the actual, the 10 seconds before the players go out, it's not like you see on the movies. There isn't Churchillian speeches and all this sort of thing. Hopefully our work is done at that point.
Thank you. Good luck.
Cheers, Paul.
Michael, like you said, no one's been in this situation before. How much of it do you think will come down to who handles the weirdness of the whole thing the best out of the teams that are in the playoffs? Well,
again, we'll know afterwards. So it's something I'm a firm believer in. I think I think mentality gets you a long way in football anyway. So it's something that we've worked quite hard on, and had people from the outside coming in to help the players. I think there's been a real shift, and probably that's been the biggest shift since I've come in, has been the mentality of the players. So, they take the credit for that, not me. But I think it can get you a long way if you're. It's all right saying it. It's being prepared to do it every day. It's easy saying, well, I'll come in and work hard every day, but sometimes it does become a job, and the players have taken that on and driven themselves. So there's been a driving force of what we're trying to do. Obviously, the physicality's got to be, the hard yards have got to be put in, and it is going to be weird. So you might be right. It might be who handles the weirdness, but it might, some players might enjoy it. Everyone assumes that players like playing in front of crowds. Not all of them will, because sometimes when you're playing, it's actually easier sometimes playing in front of 40, 50,000 because it's just noise. Sometimes when you play at our level, and it's the one bloke every week who keeps digging you out, and you know exactly where he stood. I've been there. Sometimes that's worse. Some players might actually relax, put their shoulders back. I can play like this all the time, and certain players might come out themselves. No one will know.
How big a role has sports science had to play for you, both during the pause and we didn't see the players, but also since you've been back? has it been able to sort of give you hints as to who might be ready for 90 minutes or who might not be ready to start the game and all that data that you can get? Or is it too late to do anything about it anyway, so you're just hoping that everyone's ready to play?
No, the medical side of it, the sports science side of it, they've pretty much dictated what we do to a certain level. Obviously, we create training sessions around what they want and how much they want. So, and we've had to be reactive because they look good one day and then all of a sudden a day later, the 4 or 5 come in and a bit sore and a bit tight. But that's why they're at the club. You know, there's no point me saying this is how we're doing it. That's why you have members of staff whose opinions that you trust, because they've got as much invested in it as me or the players. You know, they want to work for a League One club. So, you know, we've got young members of staff, older members of staff. Everyone's on their own journey, but they're all motivated. So, you know, there is accountability within that as well. So no, the first week it was literally like, well, over to you lot. You know, we need to get them fit. So we've done it as an educated way as what we believe is possible.
Yeah, you've had success in the playoffs at both of your professional clubs. You know, you're only 2 clubs that you had really in your professional career. Is it the best way to go up if you can go up that way? Is it the best way to do it?
I would normally say yes, but I don't know. I was lucky that I got out of the championship. I finished first, second, and in the playoffs. So, and they were all pretty good. I can tell you that now. I don't know, because they normally say if you can't win the league, the playoffs is the best way. But the whole fanfare, like you say, it's normally you're going to play in front of whatever it might be at Wembley, 20, 30, 40,000 people. You get the open top bus and the ticker tape and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think any of that's going to happen. So I'd like just another way of getting promoted. So yeah, that'd be a nice one. But I think the players are motivated now. I think we came back in on the 25th of June. So we're near, you know, we're close to 12 months work here now with the extended, obviously there was a bit of a rest period within it, but that's a lot of water under the bridge and a lot of sweat and tears and blood, and that's just getting it. And the players whoever it is will become sort of notorious as in the first team to get promoted in these times. So it's I think they'll be remembered one way or the other.
You mentioned you've been on the phone to somebody from the LMA, and we interviewed John Ward recently. He said he didn't want to use the word mentor, but he said he's there if you want to chat, and he comes to see you.
That's his title. He might not like it. That wasn't who I was speaking to, by the way. I was speaking to somebody else. But I do speak to John regularly. When I first got the job, Leroy Rossini was actually appointed as my mentor, but he left the job quite soon. So the natural fit was for John. Obviously, I know him. He knows me. Geography, it works. And he's been great, because anyone that knows John, he's pretty flatline. He doesn't get too carried away with everything. But even as a manager, he wasn't a ranter or a raver. But sometimes the snippets that he'd give you were more poignant. They were more probably impactful than a ranter and a raver sometimes. So he's a deep thinker of the game, and he's been great for me. And like you said, it's sometimes he just rings up and it's like, how are you? And sometimes I'll ring him up and I'll just pick his brains over a couple of things. So he is a good bloke, and he's been great. I've had lots of help along the way.
Yeah, well, if you're getting advice from 2 managers that got 30 years under their belt, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know Flinders isn't going to be ready for the playoffs, but I just wondered how he's doing. Because I know he had a bit of a setback. It all seemed to be going well. Then he had a bit of a setback. Is he looking like he's going to be ready for the start of the new season if that happens in September?
You can tell me when the start of the new season, and you know more than me. No, he had some sort of procedure to help the bone growth. So I've not actually seen him since we've been back in, because obviously he's doing his work remotely, because the only people that are allowed into the training ground they have to be essential workers. And with Scott at the minute, the cost of testing, and he can do his work, and he lives a long way away as well. So, I have regular updates with Gav in terms of where he is. So we did have a little setback, but he's had some good news since then as well. So whether that means he'll be ready for the start of next season. Like I said, whenever that will be, we don't know. But it's been a bit longer than what we hoped. But it's important that you get him right before you rush him.
Yeah, last one from me, Michael. Like you said, this will never be forgotten. Whatever happens in the playoffs, it's never happened before. But how much of whether you go up or not will dictate the business you do in the summer? How much of a difference do you think League One, League Two will make to who you want to sign, who you want to keep, who you might want to let go somewhere else?
Well, it opens different doors. You'll be able to attract different players, but within that, money goes up as well for A, wages, and B, budgets. So these are genuinely all questions that I can't answer because, well, first thing, I don't know what league we're in. I don't know what the budget will be because we don't know when the season will start and we don't know when crowds will be let in. So that's the difficult part of having those conversations with players and not being able to give them an actual answer. So it will make a difference. Clearly, you'll get better loans, or you might not get first-time loans. You might get lads who have actually had a year at League Two, so you might be able to get in League One. You go back to League Two, obviously there's the uncertainty over the salary cap and whether that's going to be implemented and numbers of players and all things like that. So to be honest, putting that sort of on the back burner first and get these two games out of the way and see where we're at. I know that won't give you an answer because you still have a final to play, but it'll be a start.
Thanks, Michael. All the best.
Cheers, John.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
I just wanted to ask, do you know if it's 5 subs? Because the Premier League are doing 5 subs from a possible 9. Is that the same for the playoffs, do you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Does that make a difference to how you sort of work things out? As
Yeah,
the game
these
goes
are things that, these are meetings that have already been had. Is a bit more of a strategy with your substitutions, a bit more of the sports science get involved in and thinking, well, he might only be able to do that sort of minutes. He might, now obviously will react. So you will have certain plans. And the other thing being that, excuse me, with set plays, it can get messy when you're making 4 or 5 changes. So you need to know whose jobs will be doing who. So we'll almost have certain plans set in place for depending who's on the pitch and who's not on the pitch. Now, just almost like sketching it out as much as anything. So again, that comes back into the whole staff, as in everyone's got a job to try and help the players through. Because I can almost guarantee you now, it won't be the same 22 players that played the first game that'll be playing the second game. I would imagine, the players might surprise you. The bodies might be more resilient than what we think, but I'd imagine there'll be a couple feeling something after the first game, and with a 4-day turnaround, the next game coming so quickly, I wouldn't have thought that would happen. So people will need to know and will need to come in and impact the game. And like you said, that could be a tactical thing, or it could be just a case of, the tactical again, whether it's bigger bodies, quicker bodies, change of shape, all sorts of things. All these sorts of things have been talked about, spoken about, and the common thing that we keep saying is no one knows. No one knows how it's going to pan out, but it's just trying to have as many plans in place to react off what's happening on the pitch.
Another thing, I mean, it may sound strange, but with no crowd in, obviously, if you were trying to get a message out to your players, everybody's going to hear it. So have you got a special system that you've thought of to sort of get a message across without the opposition bench sort of working out and knowing immediately what it is?
I don't think, like I said, we won't come away too much from what we. Now, obviously, I'll be able to give the players a little bit more advice in terms of shouting at them. So it might be a bit more beneficial, but there'll be no secret whistles or there's no handshakes anyway, anything like that. We have a certain way of playing. The players know the job, so when A has the ball, we expect B and C to be doing this, and that won't change. We might be able to help them a little bit more on it or impact them a little bit more, but that's not always a positive either, because sometimes they don't want to hear you. They want to make their own decisions. They want to make their own minds up, and they're sometimes the best players. So quite often I'm shouting, "Don't pass it to him! Don't pass it to him! What a ball that is!" So that happens quite a lot. So it's careful. I don't dictate the way that they play, but I definitely will have an influence over what's happening.